I was ready to come to you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I had a good chunk of time dedicated to filming a video today. I had all my notes prepared. I was so ready to go today. I've been ready for like a week. It felt so good. And then last night, this happened.
Make a very thin cut. Oh my god! Look at the snow!
Apparently there was a failure in the gas main or a gas leak of some sort. So, hence the jackhammer at 2 a.m. in the morning and at 3 a.m. and then more trucks at 4 a.m. and more trucks at 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and yeah, they're still out there actually. I've been sleep deprived before, but this has been a unique experience, to be honest. I have been dropping things all day. I have been forgetting language. It's been a rough day, and I have to imagine that it's the sleep deprivation plus the jackhammer. Like that did something really unusual to my brain to be, supposed to be sleeping and, replacing sleep with jackhammer on asphalt for hours. We're going to try this again. Let's talk about book prizes. Before we do, tell me in the comments where you fall on the scale of appreciation for book prizes. Are you a big fan, a casual follower, couldn't care less, or bitter enemy? Maybe there are some bitter enemies out there. I personally love following people who read book prizes. I really do. The Booker Prize, the International Booker, the Women's Prize, the Pulitzer, National Book Award, the Gillmor Prize. I love predictions videos. I love rankings. I love reading vlogs. I love reaction videos. I love it all. But do I actually read from prize lists myself? No, I do not. At least not intentionally. I don't have to because you do such a good job of it for me. I can watch all of the book prize videos to my heart's content, learn about all the books that you're reading, what you all think of them, and then I can absorb that information and maybe go read something else. And I really don't mean that facetiously. I really love getting to experience book prizes through other readers. And then I don't feel like I have to read them because I've kind of experienced the books through you all. And I know not everybody watching actually does read through prize lists, but you know what I mean. A lot of folks do. I'm guessing that there are others among you who greatly dislike book prizes and you do not care to pay attention to them or read through them. Maybe you're sick of the content out there about book prizes. Maybe you are feeling that a lot of book prizes feature kind of overly hyped books that don't deserve quite all of the attention that they're getting. Just a guess. But I think both book prize lovers and book prize haters, might be interested in the book prize that I'm going to share today. And I know there are a great number of you watching this who are already very familiar with the Republic of Consciousness prize and are excited to check it out. So if that's you and you already know all you need to know about the Republic of Consciousness prize, feel free to skip ahead to the long list section. I'll leave chapters in the description below. But if you don't know a lot about the Republic of Consciousness prize yet, let me tell you a little bit more about it before we jump into the long list. I had never heard of the Republic of Consciousness prize until after I started my YouTube channel. So I started this channel to share my own personal journey as I explore the world of independent publishers and university presses. And last year, as I was doing some research for a video that I did on monthly subscription memberships that a lot of independent presses have that you can buy and get a book from an indie press each month. As I was researching for that video, I found that in the UK, there was an amazing prize called the Republic of Consciousness Prize that was completely dedicated to small publishers. And I discovered it through researching for this particular video because the UK Republic of Consciousness Prize has a monthly subscription program where they send you a book on a monthly basis that is from a different small press. I have since learned, as I watch and get to know more people on YouTube, that plenty of people read from the Republic of Consciousness Prize and talk about it on their channels. And, you know, it's a well-respected, well-regarded prize that started in the UK. And last winter, shortly after I was doing this research and found the UK Republic of Consciousness Prize, I discovered that they were launching a US and Canada version of the prize. And actually, by the time I discovered that, they had already just announced the long list. So when I found out about the long list, I was still newer on my journey into exploring independent publishers and university presses. So I had only read one of the books on the long list, and I owned a second book that was on the long list. And I immediately put an order into my library for the rest of the long list, and I ended up making a series of several videos about reading through the long list, about the short list, and then about the winning book for the prize. And I found that long list so thought-provoking, so fresh, so innovative, just really refreshing. And in fact, all of my favorite books from the long list were the books that ended up making it to the short list as well. So my favorite books from the long list last year were called Pollock's Arm, Blood Red, The Sleeping Car Porter, God's Children Are Little Broken Things, and the last book in Jan Vos's Septology, which I actually have not read, but I didn't read at the time. However, I just started reading Septology, and I'm enjoying it so much that I think had I read it at the time, it would have been one of my favorites. But the experience was a little lonely, I have to admit, because I posted my videos and I didn't make much of an effort to try and engage with other people who might be reading the list or interested in the prize itself. I just put my videos out there, and that was kind of that. And so it was a little bit, in comparison, when I look at all these other book prizes that have lots of activity around them, it felt a little bit lonely. This time around, I am inviting you to join me in either reading through this amazing prize, or at least following along with me as I read through the prize. And to help foster a bit of real-time conversation, I am starting a Discord server that this time is really going to be dedicated to the Republic of Consciousness Prize chit chat, talking about the US and Canada prize and the UK prize, which is coming out soon too. So I already announced this in a previous video as well, or I tossed it out as an idea in a previous video in my 2024 reading plans. And I think enough folks were interested that I'm going to do it. I'm setting up a Discord server. There was some sentiment that I share myself, that those who are interested would really prefer for this to be a smaller community, a more manageable group of people to converse with each other about this prize and other independent publishers, small presses in general. I share those feelings, so I am going to post a link to join the Discord server in the description below, but only leave it up for a limited amount of time until the people who've already expressed interest and myself feel like we're at a comfortable size. So if you see the link and you are interested, I would suggest signing up now. I will say, if you don't see the link and you are desperate to join, my email is also below, so just email me and we'll work something out. So I don't think there's going to be a huge influx of people joining this server, but you never know. So we'll see. So I think you will like this prize if you like translated fiction. There's a good amount of translated fiction on here. If you like experimental fiction, not all of it is going to be experimental. Not all of the list last year was experimental, but there's a good amount of experimental fiction listed here. So at least be comfortable or interested in exploring it. I think you'll like it if you can appreciate short story collections. Last year there were a bunch of short story collections. This year there's only one on the US and Canada prize long list. Maybe you don't have to be a huge short story fan, but that you might be more interested in this prize if you do have a little bit of interest in or are open to short story collections. And I think you'll love it if you love exploring under the radar books that maybe haven't gotten the kind of press or attention that they deserve. If you love book prizes but are already completely overwhelmed with your reading plans for this time of year, I still invite you to join me and follow along as I read through the long list, because at the very least, then these under the radar books will now be on your radar. If you hate book prizes, then maybe give this one a try, because I think it might be refreshing for you if you like to read the kind of things that I just listed. Often the books on this list I find don't adhere to really mainstream trends, so if you're not a fan of like sticking to big mainstream trends, then maybe give this a shot. Okay, so let's talk about this US and Canada long list, which was just announced like 2 days ago. The criteria for the US and Canada prize and the UK prize are different from each other, and actually the US and Canada prize criteria have changed since last year. So the criteria to be able to submit a book to be nominated and considered for this prize are: the small press has to have an average annual net revenue based on the 2 preceding years of less than $750,000. The publisher must be established in the US or Canada and dedicated to literary fiction as its main creative aim. And the publisher must be an independent financial body and cannot be wholly or partly owned by any other financial body or business. Those are the main criteria. You can go to the website, which I'll list if you are interested. In general, I was thrilled with the long list when I saw it. I wanted to film a live reaction to it, but I ended up seeing it before I realized what I was seeing, so totally cool. It includes 10 books of fiction. 4 of those books are translated works of fiction that have been translated into English. 9 are novels. 1 is a short story collection. I have read 2 of the books on the long list, and I own another 2 of the books, so I own a total of 4. I was aware of 9 of the books on the list, whereas last year I was probably only aware of maybe half of the books on the long list. This year I knew about 9 of the 10 books and could have told you off the top of my head kind of what they were about and what publisher they were from. And 8 of the 10 books I have mentioned at some point on this channel. So either mentioned when I read them or mentioned the books when the book was the month after the book was published. So as one of my recently released books videos. 8 of the 10. I think that's a pretty big improvement over where I was with the long list last year. I feel like I've learned a lot, and it gives me hope that I am gathering my information from the right sources for what like the really incredible books from small presses are that are being published. So it gives me hope that what I'm sharing is good information with you throughout the year. I am not sure how I missed the 2 that I haven't mentioned on my channel because they're both from publishers I follow very closely. I'll get into that when we actually talk about the long list. So let's dive in to that long list. This is Cross Stitch. It's by Jazmina Barrera. It's translated by Christina, MacSweeney, and it's published by Two Lines Press. This novel is about 3 friends, 3 girls growing up in Mexico City, and it takes place actually when they're adults, and one of the 3 friends has just found out that another one of the 3 friends has just drowned. And so then the book is actually her reminiscing about their time growing up together and their teenage years, and then also the present day dealing with the news of her friend's death. And she's also a new mother and has just published a book. And what I really adored about this novel was the way it incorporated the history and themes of needlework into the narrative. It was very cool and very well done. Next up, we have The Long Form by Kate Briggs, and this is published by Dorothy, a publishing project. And this is a novel about a mother going through her daily routines with her new baby. And the mother is Helen, the baby is Rose, when suddenly a package is delivered to Helen. The package contains a used copy of Henry Fielding's A History of Tom Jones. I started reading this the other night and already am blown away. The scene where Helen receives the package of the novel, that scene of the delivery is possibly the best thing I've read in quite a long time. And I read a lot of amazing books. I bought this in the fall because I also bought the other book that Dorothy published last year. They only published 2 books a year. So I bought the other book and I bought this one at the same time. And I was saving it because I thought, well, maybe I should read The History of Tom Jones first or alongside it. And that's out the window now. I just need to buckle down and read it, I think, and not worry about Tom Jones. Then we have Two Sherpas by Sebastián Martínez Daniell, and it's translated by Jennifer Croft, and it's from Charco Press. And this was somehow one of the 2 books that I missed and didn't mention on my channel when it came out in the US. If you see how many Charco Press books I own, you'll be as confused by this as I am, like how I managed to miss this one being published here. So this book is about, and I'm going to read the blurb here, a British climber has fallen from a cliffside in Nepal and lies inert on a ledge below. 2 Sherpas kneel at the edge, waiting for him to move. In those minutes, the world opens up to Kathmandu, a sun-bleached beach town on another continent, and the pages of Julius Caesar. Mountaineering, colonialism, obligation, in Sebastián Martínez Daniell's effortless prose, each breath is crystalline, and the whole world is visible from here. The next one on the long list is actually the other book I haven't mentioned on the channel before, and that's Breaking and Entering by Gillmor, and it's from Biblioasis. And honestly, I'm baffled because I follow Biblioasis like a hawk. So they are one of my all-time favorites. I think they're so cool. I was aware of this book somewhere in my brain, but somehow didn't mention it or wasn't aware of like when it was released. And so I don't think I've mentioned this on the channel before. But just listen to this. 49 and sweating through the hottest summer on record, Beatrice Billings is rudderless. Her marriage is stale, her son communicates slowly through cryptic text messages, her mother has dementia, and she conducts endless arguments with her older sister in her head. She dreams of the past, she's on the verge of divorce. Everything changes when she Googles escape and discovers the world of amateur lockpicking. I'm going to leave it there. Next up on the long list is Your Love Is Not Good by Johanna Hedva, and it's from And Other Stories. This is a novel about a queer Korean-American painter who meets a beguiling white woman named Hannah at a party and immediately becomes infatuated with Hannah. And soon the painter is using Hannah as a model and a muse for a series of paintings. And those paintings eventually become a big hit. So just as the artist is on the verge of a big breakthrough with this series of paintings, and they're going to be shown at a gallery, at a sold-out show at a gallery, no less, a petition starts to circulate. It's a petition started by a Black performance artist and it begins making the rounds in the art community. And it's calling for the boycott of major museums and art galleries for their imperialist and racist practices. So the artist is then torn between wanting to support this petition and also wanting to have a successful career through which the artists can feed themselves. So I had wanted to read this one. I listened to a great interview with the author. I'm excited. Next up is the other of the 2 books from the long list that I have read, and this is Landscapes by Christina Lay, and this is from $2 Radio. This is a beautiful debut novel. It is set in a near future in a time of ecological collapse, and it takes place in a dilapidated English country estate that is serving as a home for climate refugees. And Penelope is the main character here, and she lives in this estate with her partner who owns the estate. And Penelope is desperately trying to archive and record the contents of the estate's massive art collection. And so she's working through this art collection and taking notes when she can, but because the house is scheduled to be demolished in the near future. And meanwhile, Penelope is also dealing with memories of a traumatic event that happened in her past. So all this is kind of going on at the same time, and I loved this book so much. I think its depiction of ecological collapse and climate change it felt like, okay, this is what it's going to feel. This is what it's going to be like. This is what it's going to feel like. Next up is The Birthday Party, and it's by Laurent Mauvignier, and it's translated by Daniell Levin Becker, and it's from Transit Books. This is the other book that I own but have not yet read fully. I started this over the summer and I loved it so much that I stopped reading it, actually, bizarrely. I stopped reading it because I wanted to save it for a time when I could read it slowly and savor it. But the joke is now on me because the short list is announced March 5th and I got to read this before then. So I at least try to read it. I guess best laid plans, but I already know that I am going to love it. So that's a good thing. I was really excited to see it on the long list. But what is it about, Sarah? What is it about? So this takes place in an isolated hamlet in rural France where lives Patrice Bourgogne, inheritor of his family's farm, his wife Marion, their daughter Ida, and their neighbor Christine, who's an artist. While Patrice plans a surprise for his wife's 40th birthday, inexplicable events start to disrupt the hamlet's quiet existence. Anonymous menacing letters, an unfamiliar car rolling up the driveway, and as night falls, strangers stalk the houses, unleashing a nightmarish chain of events. Next up from City Lights is a novel called Lojman, and we're going to learn together through this long list reading project how to pronounce that title, and the author and translator as well. So bear with me today. We're going to learn together in the next video. Lojman by Ebru Ojen, translated by Aron Aji and Selin Gökcesu. So I'm thrilled to see this one on the long list because I remember it standing out when I first mentioned it. And honestly, the cover kind of creeps me out and I love it. So this is about a Kurdish woman who is living in a small village in the mountains of Turkey's Van province. And she is abandoned by her husband, marooned by an epic snowstorm, and then gives birth to her third child. Do I need to say more? I will. This novel is apparently reminiscent of Elena Ferrante's Days of Abandonment, which I haven't read, but I do love Elena Ferrante. But as the blurb says, its private dramas are made all the more vivid against an imposing natural landscape that exerts a powerful, life-threatening force. And then we have from Graywolf Press, The Box by Mandy-Suzanne Wong. And I remember struggling to describe this book when I first mentioned it, so let's see how it goes this time. I'm just going to read some snippets straight from the website. In a dark and crooked lane in an unnamed city where it never ceases to snow, a small white box falls from a coat pocket. It is made of paper strips woven tightly together. There's no apparent way to open it without destroying it. A passing witness picks up the box, and from there the novel follows an impenetrable rectangle as it changes hands in a collapsing metropolis, causing confluences, conflicts, rifts, and disasters. It's described as a puzzle of a novel that challenges our understanding of subjects and objects, of cause and effect. Is it only humans who have agency? What is or isn't animate? What do we value and what do we discard? I can't help but think, after those questions, of the IKEA commercial with the lamp. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Where the lamp is like being tossed out and there's like sad music and then the guy comes on and he's like, it's just a lamp. And the final and 10th book on the long list, and this is the publisher to beat. This is the publisher of the reigning champion and last year's winner, Public Space Books. Last year's winner was God's Little Children. No, it wasn't. God's Children Are Little Broken Things by Arinze Ifekandu. This year's nomination from A Public Space is The Sorrows of Others by Ada Zhang. This is the only short story collection on the list. It's so interesting because last year so many on the long list were short story collections. So this is a collection that's set in China and America following generations of characters after the Cultural Revolution. It's about people confronted with being outsiders, as immigrants, as revolutionaries, and even often within their own families. The blurb says, Ada Zhang writes with startling honesty and love about lives young and old in a stunning debut that explores what happens when we leave home and what happens when we stay, and the selves we meet and shed in the process of becoming. And I remember very specifically when I mentioned this book on the channel before because one of the blurbs is from Jamel Brinkley, who wrote one of my favorite short story collections of all time. He wrote A Lucky Man, which was published by Graywolf, and he blurbed this short story collection and called it elegantly braided and filled with substantial prose that resonates richly with a deep understanding of character and true mystery. So there's the long list. I splurged this year and I ordered all of the rest of the long list from my local bookstore. They were able to order all of them but one, so the last one I was able to purchase from bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores anyway. So I splurged. I feel like I've been saving my pennies a little bit and was able to treat myself. Last year I did get most of the books from the library, so I think what I'm going to do this year is just check the library, double check that they do have all these books, and if they don't, I'll put in a request for them to buy them. So I think that'll be a good thing to do. So if you are interested, I encourage you to sign up for the Discord community while you can. The link will be in the description below. Again, I'm only going to leave that link there for a limited time until those of us who've already expressed interest feel like we're at a comfortable group size. And again, if you don't see the link and you're desperate to join, send me an email and we'll see what we can do. My name is Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. No. To continue. Buttheads. To continue to publish the really boundary pushing work that a lot of these small publishers publish. I'm having like I know, like PTSD almost. The sounds of the drugs. Oh my God.